If you're living in Japan and you're planning to stay here and you don't own your own home, it might be worth thinking about what you're going to do in the future before it's too late. Let's talk about it. So of course, living here in Japan, there are very good reasons to rent your home and there are very good reasons to buy your home. We've done a video about this, you can find it here on the channel. But today I wanted to go a little bit deeper into this topic and talk about why it might be worth thinking about buying before it's too late, especially if you're planning to retire here, you're planning to stay here for the rest of your life. Now, there's a few reasons to think about buying sooner rather than later or not at all. And the first of these is being able to get a loan or a mortgage to buy the property. Now, in Japan, most lenders will generally want you to have finished paying off the loan before you're 75. That's the kind of cut-off date. So if you want a 35-year mortgage, the latest you could get that under most scenarios is around age 40. If you're 50, then you're looking at maybe a maximum 25-year loan. Age 60, it's basically a 15-year loan, and that's if you can get one. Issue with shorter mortgages is that the monthly payments are going to be that much higher. You might find it more difficult to borrow as an older applicant, and of course the standard caveats with Japanese banks apply. Most banks prefer that you be a permanent resident at least, and most banks prefer that you're in regular employment and have been for at least 2 or 3 years. You might also find it more difficult to get the more favorable loans in terms of lower interest rates or not having to put down a deposit on the property and so on. You might find yourself limited by your choice of properties in terms of having a lower budget due to having a shorter loan, higher monthly repayments and so on. Most people don't want to be worrying about making their mortgage payments after they've retired. In Japan, we often face mandatory retirement ages even now in 2025, and most people find that their income is considerably lower after they reach that mandatory retirement age. If you're a freelancer, a part-time worker, it's going to be difficult to keep working in some circumstances. You might find it harder to keep up your income. Without the same level of income, it's going to be more difficult to pay loans and so on. Now, probably the biggest issue with not owning your home in retirement as you get older is the fact that in Japan, many landlords are reluctant to rent to older people. They've got concerns about your health, your ability to repay, and ultimately they're concerned about you possibly dying in the property, which can be a real problem for a landlord. It's much more difficult to rent it out after that. They're not going to be able to charge as high a rent. So there are very real concerns on the part of landlords, and many people find that their choices to rent in retirement could be quite restricted. Most people find that buying a property with a mortgage tends to be a fair bit cheaper than renting the same property. If you've spread that out over decades, there's quite a high opportunity cost to renting, especially in Japan, where mortgage rates are very, very low. We have the tax break on mortgages and so on. So over a 10, 20, 30-year period, you could find yourself saving a lot of money by buying a home with a loan as compared to renting the same home. And of course, once you've paid off the mortgage, the property is yours and your monthly expenses are going to be considerably lower. You're basically just going to be paying tax, insurance, maintenance, and so on, compared to someone who's renting, who's going to keep paying rent, possibly at the market rate, which possibly could go up in the future. Now, there is a huge exception to this, and that is if you're currently living in a high cost of living area like Tokyo or another big city, and you're planning to retire to somewhere else, maybe in the countryside where things are much cheaper. You might find in that situation that renting while you're working in the city and then buying outright a cheaper property when you move to the countryside is a viable option as well. Everyone's aware of the Akiya situation in Japan. It's possible to buy very cheap properties if you're willing to move to certain areas, and that might be worth considering as well if you're living and working in a big city where renting might make more sense, and then in retirement you can just buy it outright if it's cheap enough. We do have a video about buying an Akia in Japan. You might want to check that out for our thoughts on that. So what do we need to keep in mind if we're thinking about staying in Japan? Well, you might want to consider buying a home. So as long as you're able to live there in the long run, you know, if you're going to be there for 10, 20, 30 years, it often makes sense to buy your home in Japan. Getting permanent residency before you need to take out a mortgage can really simplify the process. And you may find later in life that it's difficult to rent in Japan as an older person, and particularly as an older non-Japanese person. You're hitting the overlap between landlords not wanting to rent to foreigners and landlords not wanting to rent to older people. If you're both, you're going to see your window of opportunity shrinking quite a lot there. But the most important thing is not whether you buy or not, but it's whether you've thought about it. You're aware of your choices, you're aware of the potential consequences of your choices, and you made an informed decision. Best way to do that is to think about it as soon as possible, make a plan, and review your plan from time to time. See how things are going, see what you want to do, see if that plan still works for you. And this is true across all areas of personal finance. But how about you? How are you handling your housing here in Japan? Have you bought your home already? Are you planning to buy, or have you decided not to buy? Please let us know in the comments. Let me know if you've got any questions. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.